So here we go. It's a beautiful evening, so I thought I'd do this sitting outside. This is the first fire phase circle that we will have together. The next one will be on June 14th, where it will be meeting at my house here because we'll be having a solstice potluck. And it's a week early because the third weekend in June is always Father's Day. So that's the bulletin headline. And then we're going to talk about fire stuff. So the fire element starts at May 1st. We start to transition in, and it's fully here by May 14th or 15th or so. So the fire energy is the one that gives rise to summer. It carries a spark of light, warmth, passion, connection. It's the movement toward union. So union with another person, union with community, union with the greater web of life, and union with the divine. Fire governs joy, laughter, passion, intimacy, play, awe, connection. Many of those things are what we think about as summertime. The summer fire provides the warmth necessary for maturation, the energy necessary for maturation. So plants create flowers and get pollinated, make fruit and seed. Animals mate and nurture new life, and humans seek connection, intimacy, creativity, and full expression. And so this is why we have summer flings, is because there is a natural amplification of that seeking of connection and intimacy, and it's often sexual because fire is where sexual energy comes from, and so the summer fire energy just amplifies all that. So fire is the phase of full outward manifestation. So everything that began to gather in the dark winter water phase and was pushed up through the wood spring phase comes fully into itself in the fire summer phase. And so whatever is available to mature does that in summer. So there are 4 officials in fire, which is important to note rather than just 2. And that is unique. So in the other phases, like in spring, we have the organs associated with it, the officials associated with it are the liver and gallbladder, which makes sense, liver, gallbladder. The water phase, it's bladder, kidney. The earth phase is spleen, pancreas, stomach. So this is a little diagram. Hang on to my papers, they don't blow away. This is a little diagram where it's just a different organization of the 5 phases. And so we have the fire phase is this red one, green is wood, blue is water, white is metal, yellow is earth. And this is used in acupuncture treatment. It's basically how these officials relate to each other in an acupuncture sense. And the little dots inside actually have numbers on them, and they are indicating specific acupuncture points. But that's not important. What's important to notice about this is that you see how each of these has 2 of the white circles within, but fire has 4. So what does that really mean? So the officials in the fire phase are the heart, and this is the heart. It's a physical heart, but it's the heart as the it's called the supreme controller. So this is sort of like the emperor of the body, mind, spirit state, and the heart houses the shen, or the spirit, or the soul. And it is a mystical organ that is connected to the divine. the heart translates divine consciousness into individual consciousness. So the heart is likened to the emperor empress, right? And emperor empress was thought to be sort of like a manifestation of the divine on earth, in divine and human form. Not that we all aren't, but in monarchies, there the the idea is that that person has some kind of direct connection, and so that what they say is actually spoken from the divine. And we all know in practical sense that just because you're a monarch doesn't make that true. But anyway, so they were thought to be a representative of heaven here on earth. And part of the what has to happen is that this sacred center, the emperor empress, has to be protected and undisturbed in order to do their job. So there's two aspects of the heart that I want to talk about, and I just rumpled this paper, sorry. This little diagram is in the handout that I sent you. So this is your spirit up here, this pretty mandala thing. And so then you have a picture of a camera. My mother used to have one of these. I think it was called a brownie in the 60s. And you look down through the top of it, and then the person you were trying to take a picture of would have been over here. And the image comes through this lens and bounced off a mirror and came up to your eye. And when you looked in that little camera, your person that you were trying to take a picture of was actually upside down because of the way that the mirror did that reflection. And so this little camera idea is really how the heart works. So it has the vertical, which is your connection to your higher self, the aspect of your soul that's not incarnated. So the way I understand it is that your soul is some percentage here, and like maybe 75% or something. I'm not sure. Here that kind of resides in your heart, but there's an aspect of it that stays wherever you came from in the oneness. And so this is why at the top of the breath, we pause and plug ourselves back in. And what you're plugging yourself into at the top of the breath when we do our floss breathing is your own higher self, soul self, the divine self that's left in the oneness. So that happens via the heart. The heart is the organ that allows that to happen. And so when you plug yourself back in and then you exhale, your higher self, spirit self, divine self comes back down through the heart. And just like that camera has a mirror, that image of the divine is flipped, and you broadcast the reflection of the divine through your heart. So this is your mirror of the heart. So this divine energy, love, which is the energy that creation is made out of, is love. It's the most powerful creative. It is the powerful creative energy, right? It's not an accident that when people are making babies, they call it making love, right? It's creation. So what happens is that you're drawing down this divine consciousness, and then it's reflected from the mirror of your heart out into your relationships in the horizontal world. So with other people and with the world around us. So it's important to think about that mirror. And in Sufi teaching, there's a lot of talk or a teaching about that what we do with practices, with the various practices, is actually polishing that mirror of the heart so that this is a true reflection, so that we can receive the light of God and reflect it truly with some accuracy into the world around us. The heart is the thing that like opens briefly and expands in awe. So when you come across something that is inspires awe, and it can be some simple, dewdrops on a spider web in the morning, or an amazing sunset, or I don't know, something your kid says. It's very simple things that basically trigger awe. Is that the heart opens for a brief second, you go ah, like this, and then this is clear, only for a second, because if you remained in that state for too long, you'd lose your mind, really. Um, because in that state there is no ego for a brief second, and then it would be impossible to like go grocery shopping or drive a car. So in the moment of awe, the mind quiets and the heart opens, and we get a glimpse of the clear light of the divine for a moment. So human beings have gone looking for awe in all kinds of ways forever. I mean, it's how we do spiritual life. So this can be meditation or chanting or music or poetry or art or psychedelics or time in nature or sacred ritual or um, deeply loving relationships. There's all kinds of ways to connect the heart to awe. And and the horizontal connection of our little brownie camera here, where we're reflecting the divine energy out into the world. This is your partner, your family, your community, your friends, humanity, the living world around us of apple trees and all the plants and animals that are just part of the living world. Um, and fire governs our desire to love and be loved. It is a natural expression of uh, the divine moving through us to love and be loved. And okay, that's good. So we have the heart as one of the organs in our little foursome here, one of the physical organs. It's paired with the small intestine, which when I first started learning about this stuff, I was like, what? Gallbladder, liver, that makes sense. Bladder, kidney makes sense. Spleen, pancreas, stomach makes sense. But what about the heart and small intestine? I don't quite get that. So if you think about it, though, what your small intestine does is the old books say, sorts the pure from the impure. So it's going through everything you just ate and deciding what it can turn into you and what it's going to poop out. So it's sorting through what you can use and what you can't use, what can be made into you and what really can't. So emotionally and spiritually, this is going to be what nourishes your soul versus what's toxic, what aligns with your true path and what distracts you from it. And in the modern world, of course, we're flooded with all kinds of emotional toxin. This is why I'm always saying to people, be very careful about the news you take in and just information overload generally. And the material world that we live in with all these false desires and endless distractions. And so what that does is it compromises the small intestine. Now, this can be your physical small intestine. So we all know that when we are emotionally distraught, our guts are a mess. And what do we call that? IBS, irritable bowel syndrome, right? And it's an emotionally driven situation. And when this is happening at the level of the mind, because you remember all of these organs, they have a physical and a manifestation as well as a mental, emotional manifestation and a spiritual manifestation. So at the level of the mind emotion, we sort of lose clarity, we lose discernment, we lose the ability to sort the pure from the impure and maybe feel like something is right for us when it really isn't. And we can become quite dysregulated, emotionally dysregulated, and lose our connection to joy, which is the emotion of fire, joy. And we will also, in that, drift away from our soul's mission, because we have to be able to sort the pure from the impure. Like, this situation, this book, this friend, this job is actually going to, I'm going to be able to turn that into myself, or I can't. Sorry, there's some bugs out here. So that's why the heart and small intestine go together, right? Because we have to be able to discern whether to go left or right in our lives, and it's the small intestine that is doing that. Like, being able to discern that something feels right for you, and being correct about that. So we have the heart, the small intestine are two of those four on our little circles. The other two that we have are called, one is called the heart protector or pericardium. Sometimes I'll use those words interchangeably. And the other one is called the triple heater or triple burner. So the heart protector pericardium is the this. It's the one who takes the vertical Shen spirit heart energy and tips it to the people. It's called the officials in charge of the pleasures of the people. So this is radiating the warmth and light of the heart into outward life. It's the emotional heart. It's the Valentine heart. It's the part of you that falls in love, that suffers heartbreak, that feels passion, that longs for connection, that experiences emotional intimacy. The pericardium also absorbs the roughness of ordinary life. Like, it's the one that is heartbroken, and that is, and this is why it's called the heart protector, because there has to be a separation between the heart and life, in the sense of there has to be a difference. Like, if you're the emperor, you can't function if you're dealing with the rough and tumble emotions and stuff of everyday life. And so the emperor stays in their palace and rules from there, and then issues edicts to the ministers to go out to the people. So that's the this action of the fire. And when the pericardium is functioning well, we feel warm and connected and passionate and open and emotionally alive, and we have good boundaries about who we're going to let in and who we're like, no, that's not so great. So in acupuncture, there's all the points, acupuncture points have very poetic, or often poetic, point names. Sometimes they're just referring to its anatomical location, but there are two. The heart meridian is right here in between the last two fingers, and the pericardium is right here between the middle two fingers. So this point right here is a palace on the heart meridian, and this point right here is a palace on the pericardium. So, and those meridians begin, the heart is in the armpit and the pericardium is at the nipple. So they start here and they end at your fingertips. So right before you get to the end points, you have two palaces. Right here, it's hard for me to show you this. I guess I could show you on the back of my hand. At this one hand's width up from your wrist flex, this point here on both sides, these are called the outer frontier gate and the inner frontier gate. So these are the gates to the palaces. So in those old cities, they were walled, and they had one gate because they wanted to be able to guard the palace and know who came in and out. So these points right here are about guarding the inner and outer frontier gates. So that's in part how we know about them as the pericardium and triple burner as the keepers of the boundaries, the good boundaries, the appropriate boundaries. So the triple burner, triple heater is the controller of temperature. So it's like lower burner, middle burner, upper burner. So it distributes warmth and communication amongst all the officials. So physically, it's sort of like the heating and air conditioning department, but it governs, emotionally, it governs balanced relational exchange and helps us regulate closeness and distance with others. Like how far are you going to, how close in does whoever this person is, how close to your inner self do they get? That's why they have, it's the outer frontier gate. So they're part of the boundary system. But when that's dysregulated or compromised emotionally, somebody might run hot and cold or become inconsistent or feel disconnected and struggle with sort of emotional regulation. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about fire as a transformative force, right? So fire, the literal fire, takes wood and burns it up, or takes whatever and burns it up. And so it is very much a transformative force. So the fire phase in a human being is roughly ages 20 to 40. And think about what goes on when you're 20 to 40 years old. You're building relationships. If you're going to partner, you do that. If you're going to have a family, you do that. You're going to find your career, your vocation, and you really come into yourself. And by the time you're 40, you're like, okay, here I am. I figured out um, sort of my potential and my pathology, basically. That you've come to know yourself well enough to know that you're never going to be an astronaut or a concert pianist or whatever the dreams and aspirations you had when you were 20 have gotten quite narrow into what is actually. The fire is the fire energy is that matures the body in terms of becoming a full adult. Your brain is fully formed by the time you're 28. It matures your relationships in terms of finding the people and partners and in your business and in your personal life that are going to help you become more of yourself in that period of time. And it matures your creativity and kind of helps you narrow the focus a little bit as part of its maturity, um, and helps mature the soul's purpose. Um, let's see. I'm trying to figure out why I put this here. So, oh, here you go. I know why. So back in the wintertime, when we were in the water phase, we talked about the kidneys being and the water element being where the blueprint of your soul is basically hidden, your life's purpose, what you're meant to be doing here. And, it's in that dark stillness that we have the connection to the mystery, which is why we were talking about, deep rest and meditation and being very quiet so that we could hear and connect to um, our soul's blueprint, connect to the divine, connect to um, the next phase, the next growing season of life. And then we move from there into the wood phase in February, which takes the potential that's gathered in the dark of winter water phase, and we start to have a sense of the vision, the direction of the growth that's going to be happening for the year. And it's often easier to think about it in terms of um, the plant world, right? So um, this is February was when the sap started to move and the buds started to set on the trees. And so in a human, this is like the seed, which is your blueprint. You know, a seed carrot has all the information to make an entire plant. An oak tree is all in an acorn. It's the whole blueprint. And then when it sprouts, it knows how tall it's going to be, how many branches it's going to have. And then it takes it all the way in the fire phase is going to take that all the way to maturity, which will include sexual maturity, where it starts making acorns of its own. It flowers and makes seeds. So the fire is the warm alchemical energy that sort of cooks life into form. It matures whatever's been incubating, and um, when this is like a true maturation, then this passion is grounded in purpose. Um, it's rooted in the winter water phase because it comes from that seed and it follows the seed's pattern. Now, if you're a plant, that's what you're going to do. Like if you plant a zinnia seed, you're going to get a zinnia. It doesn't go and become an aardvark, right? But human beings do that all the time. Um, we come in, and it's this tricky brain that we have where we have um, this ego mind that thinks we're separate from the divine, and and then our mind gets in the way and starts making decisions because it's not paying attention to the pure from the impure, basically. Um, so the transformation piece, where we started with the fire, is it basically burns away what isn't necessary, and it clarifies um, the essence, like what is the true essence. So one of the aspects of this is, I could spend my time learning to speak Spanish, or um, learning to be a carpenter, or I I could spend time doing all kinds of things, but is that actually my purpose and the focus of my life? And so focus is a big part of what the fire heart does for us. So in Chinese medicine, when we think about somebody who's got a mental health issue, or has difficulty with focus, we actually treat this system, the heart, because in Chinese medicine there is no brain. It's not a brain problem; it's a heart problem, because we want to avoid wasting time in distraction, getting distracted away from our true purpose and what we're doing here. And so this is what the fire phase does: is that we let go of the false identities. You know, in a human life, by the time you're 40, you should know that you're not going to be an astronaut or a concert pianist, but you're actually going to be a farmer or a school teacher or a mother or whatever you're going to do. And that, what truly matters is living into our soul's mission, our capacity to love, right? That's the thing. You get to the end of your life and you're not thinking, well, shoot, I should have gone to the opera one more time. I should have spent more time with this person I love dearly. And we want to feel like we've contributed to life in some way and made the life of the people around us somehow better for having been here. And this is because this heart aspect is reflecting the divine into the world. So this is how it is that you are the spark of it. You are the divine, basically. It's just this particular manifestation of it is the reflection in my heart. So this is the Amy form of it, but you'll have your own form of the reflection of the divine, which of course is all the myriad things. All of creation is a reflection of that. So some of the things to keep in mind. Well, I think this is where I was talking about when we got together in our circle last Sunday was this vertical thing here that happens, vertical to horizontal. That's a connection to the divine that gets reflected through the mirror of the heart into the world. I think this right here is why we all have a very visceral and intuitive unease about AI. And this is because it is entirely horizontal. Without a heart, without a soul, without a human being on the other end of operating that, there is no vertical connection to it. And, you know, when you have some other kind of machine, it has an operator that is a person who's connected to the divine. So in that way, it can't run to amok. But now, this point at which AI is now is that it's generating itself. And so there is no human slash heart slash divine connection any longer. It's entirely without guidance from heaven. And so this is, to my mind, why it's as scary as it is, and we all kind of have that feeling about it. So we'll just talk about the correspondences really quickly. They were, each of the officials has a sense organ associated with it. For the kidney, it's the ear. For the liver, it's the eye. For the tongue, for the heart, it's the tongue. So it's speech. And so someone brought up the Four Agreements, that little book by Don Miguel Ruiz, the Four Agreements, the first of which is be impeccable with your speech. And this is why, is because whatever comes out of your mouth is it's important that be kind and true and loving and all of the things that, like in the fairy tales when the jewels come out of the heroine's mouth instead of toads and snakes. So speech actually reveals the condition of someone's heart. And so when we see all these angry people spouting the things they spout on social media, we can know something about the condition of their heart. Actually, truly, you can. And when the heart is unsettled, the speech can become, well, negative or hurtful or excessive. Somebody who's feeling manic can't stop talking. Sometimes the speech will be all over the place and quite chaotic. These are all reflections of somebody's heart. And so when you're listening to the way somebody's talking, what you're experiencing is a reflection of their heart. The color associated with it is red. It's the color of blood, vitality, passion, love. This is why we have Valentine's Day with red hearts. The odor of it is scorched. So, meaning the smell of something cooking or burning, because that is the smell of something transforming. When we have too much fire, we can burn out a system, but just the right amount creates alchemy. The flavor is bitter. The bitter flavor descends excess fire. This is why bitter herbs are used when you have like acid reflux, because the bitter flavor descends. It's helping the gallbladder it's helping the gallbladder make your digestion descend, but it's because the nature of bitter descends, and so when there's too much excess um, fire activity, using the bitter flavors are important. And we don't really have bitter in the way we eat. I mean, black coffee would be an example of something bitter, or uh, unsweetened chocolate, like baking chocolate, would also be bitter. So, other than the fact that the coffee has caffeine in it, it's going to be grounded. It's the flavor itself that would be grounding. The tissues are the blood vessels, which makes sense. It's the heart, so it's how it's communicating with the body. The climate is warmth. Summer is going to be the warm season, wherever you live, whether that's um, in northern Maine or Florida. It is still the warmer season comparatively, and it's climatically warm, but it's helps keep your body warm. Like when somebody's older and they have heart condition, they're freezing all the time. But also it creates a warmth in your presence with the appropriate boundaries and spiritual openness and connected spirit. Fire energy rises, it kind of dances like this. It looks like an EKG machine. It lifts consciousness. It's happy, it's joyful, it's excitement, it's optimism, it's enthusiasm, it's hanging out with friends around a campfire kind of feeling. The challenges and opportunities of fire, it seeks connection, but it can lose itself without discernment. So we've probably all had the experience of kind of falling in love and kind of losing ourselves um, in the excitement of that. And so the challenge of it is openness with good boundaries. It's passion, it's wisdom, it's intimacy, and the virtue of it is propriety. And propriety is kind of an old-fashioned word, but what it means is right relationship and appropriate conduct. So it's not a rigid morality. It's appropriateness in a given situation. So it's appropriate boundaries, appropriate exchange, appropriate use of your life force energy. And so those appropriate boundaries are going to look like balanced emotions, being emotionally open and being able to connect with your vulnerability, having healthy sexual boundaries, integrity in relationships, um, respect for others. We've all been in situations with friends where boundaries get overstepped or become too porous or too rigid, or inconsistency, or it's the capacity to remain connected without losing yourself. And the emotional expression of fire is joy. In wood it was benevolence, and in water it was wisdom. But this is joy. It's the feeling of being fully alive, because it's the peak of life. Um, feeling, feeling fully alive, which will also include sexual energy, right? So this isn't like a superficial kind of happiness, but it's a real joy that arises from true connection and alignment, having meaning, and in your life, and purpose, and being present in your life. That those are the things that bring us joy. It's not like, I don't know, a diamond ring, or it's not a thing outside of yourself. Passion comes from the fire element too, but this is the passion to live your life as it was given to you. So it's the passion to stay on your soul's path and to fulfill the mission, basically. And lastly, when fire gets out of balance in us, we can see it as um, feeling insecure about love relationships, particularly romantic relationships, can become really difficult. There can be emotional volatility or hyperexcitability. Somebody could be burnt out, having like burned too hot for a while, and that's why we have the expression burnt out. There could be a lack of joy. Somebody could be just really flat and unable to connect with the joy of being alive. It could be unhealthy sexual expression, that running hot and cold that we talked about, or difficulty discerning nourishing connection from toxic connection. Or the loss of connection, either to yourself, to spirit, to meaningful relationship, or to soul's purpose. I just wanted to say one more thing about going back to the small intestine. So remember, it's sorting pure from the impure. So, like, if you eat a lot of junk food, it's going to have a hard time finding anything in there that's substantially nourishing. And over time, the body weakens, the mind weakens, and so on, if you're not eating well. And that's true at the level of the mind too. So if you're taking in too much news, more news than you have the capacity to process, because there's nothing going on in the news that is actually nourishing. So here's your poor small intestine trying to sort through whatever nonsense is going on in this current moment and looking for the thing that's actually pure. And there isn't anything. And so because it's paired with the heart, it impacts the heart. So too much news, too much social media, too much social connection with people who don't nourish you. This is how your heart gets impacted, is because if there isn't anything nourishing to be had in those situations, then the heart is impacted by that. So be very, very careful about what you take into your life in terms of the people you hang around with, the news you listen to, whatever you're reading, because this is all coming in and having to be sorted through by the small intestine of the mind emotion. And it's going to affect the heart of your mind emotion, your heart mind emotion. All right, so I guess what I want to say about fire is that it reminds us that we are here to participate in life in joy, in the exchange of warmth, in connection, in creativity, in love. And it's this love that animates you and the whole world that we're in. And so the invitation of fire is to mature ourselves into the fullest possible expression of who we truly are and who we came to be, all through the warmth of the heart, which can then become a blessing into the world, because when we can do that, we can share that. And welcome to summer. Welcome to the fire season.